For hundreds of thousands of years, human survival was a mobile, collective effort. In small nomadic bands, there were no cities to govern, no massive trade networks to track, and no permanent records to keep. Social order was maintained through personal relationships and immediate needs, rather than codified systems. But in the Middle East, the landscape offered a strange anomaly. Two massive waterways, the Tigris and the Euphrates, sliced through the arid desert. Every year, they flooded their banks, depositing rich, dark silt and creating a highly arable zone known as the Fertile Crescent. Inside this zone, humans began to domesticate the landscape. Instead of following wild game, they penned and bred them. Instead of gathering wild grain across vast distances, they planted seeds and harvested them in concentrated, manageable plots. This deliberate farming created a logistical situation our species had never encountered: the surplus. For the first time, communities possessed more calories than they required for their immediate survival. A surplus of grain meant you needed a place to store it, walls to protect it, and a system to distribute it. Managing that concentrated wealth required a level of organization that nomadic bands never needed. In their attempt to manage a pile of grain, they initiated the first structural requirements of civilization. Because one farmer could now yield enough food to feed 10 people, a portion of the population was free to abandon the fields. This surplus allowed for the rise of specialized labor, where people became full-time potters, merchants, builders, and priests. To house these booming populations, communities began building dense urban centers. They took the abundant mud from the riverbanks, baked it into structural bricks, and stacked them to form the first walled cities. This is a ziggurat. It functioned simultaneously as a religious temple and a central economic distribution hub. Farmers brought their grain here as a religious offering, which the administrative class then distributed to the specialized workers who built the city. As these cities swelled to tens of thousands of residents, the scale of trade surpassed the limits of human memory. A single priest could no longer recall every grain deposit, every sheep trade, and every worker ration distributed throughout the month. The information required a physical form. This grid of impressions pressed into wet clay is early cuneiform. It originated as a utilitarian accounting tool. Scribes used shark reeds to tally bushels of barley and heads of livestock, establishing a physical receipt for every transaction occurring in the city. Over centuries, those simple tallies evolved into a script capable of capturing the complexities of spoken language. Scribes began pressing phonetic symbols into the clay to record abstract thoughts, royal decrees, and eventually entire narrative works, like the Epic of Gilgamesh. By attempting to solve a basic agricultural math problem, these administrators created a way to preserve information across generations. They had successfully invented recorded history. Packing thousands of unrelated strangers into a few square miles created constant social friction. The traditional customs of small kinship groups were insufficient for a dense city where neighbors had no blood ties and competed for the same resources. To maintain order, political authority shifted. The administrative priests who managed the grain silos were joined or replaced by secular kings who could project physical force and dictate policy as a unified source of authority. This basalt stele contains the Code of Hammurabi. It was an effort to standardize justice across different social classes. By writing the laws in these dense columns, the king replaced subjective rulings with a rigid, publicly visible legal framework. The code relied on the principle of direct retaliation, an eye for an eye. This was designed as a mechanism to prevent personal disputes from spiraling into blood feuds. By depicting the king receiving these laws from a deity, the state established the code as an absolute authority. Inside the walls, law kept the peace. Outside the walls, the concentration of urban wealth made these cities targets. To defend their surpluses, warfare evolved from tribal skirmishes into organized military science. Infantry learned to move in synchronized unison behind interlocking shields and spears. King Sargon of Akkad applied these new military tactics to conquer independent city-states, forcefully merging them into a single multinational empire. The bronze casting of his likeness reflects the technological and artistic resources now available to a centralized state. The pressures of urban density necessitated both developments. codified law to stop citizens from destroying each other on the inside, and organized military machines to secure the wealth of the city from the outside. Eventually, the physical infrastructure of Mesopotamia failed. Systemic warfare, shifting rivers, and foreign conquests brought the Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian empires to an end. Their cities dissolved back into the arid dirt from which they were built. However, the collapse of their walls did not mean the loss of their knowledge. Invading armies, traveling merchants, and displaced citizens absorbed and carried Mesopotamian innovations outward. The conquerors adopted the administrative tools of the people they defeated. These concepts migrated westward. The structures of written language, codified law, and mathematics fed directly into the foundational cultures of Egypt, Greece, and the Roman Empire. Some of their specific mathematical tools are still actively used today. The Sumerian base 60 numerical system remains the basis for how we divide a minute into 60 seconds and an hour into 60 minutes. The ziggurats and mud brick walls crumbled thousands of years ago, but by solving the logistical problems of agricultural surplus, the ancient Mesopotamians established the first standardized systems of law, mathematics, and urban administration, the same basic tools that continue to organize the modern world.